I would like to talk about peer pressure because there seems to be a notion that says that peer pressure is something that is experienced only by teenagers. But let me tell you, adults as well experience peer pressure. And this is not surprising because we are all human beings. And adults, as human beings, also have got a desire to be accepted and to fit in. But the question is, should adults find themselves at that stage? Because as adults, the assumption always is that we've got the personal power to make decisions. But like I said, adults also succumb to peer pressure, and it is something that will continue to be exerted upon us. But the main question is, do you fall for it, or are you able to manage and get your way out of peer pressure? My name is Butaki Hlalele from Dreams Made Possible. I would like to unpack the subject of adult peer pressure and also share some of the steps that you can take to be able to manage peer pressure when it is visited upon you. But let's look at this concept, peer pressure. What is it? There can be good peer pressure, there could also be bad peer pressure. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to focus on bad peer pressure. And my own definition is that peer pressure is this internal pressure that you feel. It's an internal pressure that you feel to do something that you know at the bottom of your heart you don't want to do. It's something that violates your value system, and it's something that does not align with where you want to go at that particular point in time. So it's all about trying to fit in. Probably you and I have heard words like run your own race, or stay in your own lane, or run at your own pace, or do not try to keep with the Joneses. All of this, as far as I'm concerned, they are words that are meant to encourage us not to succumb to peer pressure, but for us to know exactly what is it that we are looking for. What is it that we need to do to be able to live life at our own terms, rather than live life at the terms of others, or look at success the way others define it. But once we are not able to stay in our own lane, then we get to change the pace of our lives and start to do things the way other people want it to happen in our lives. So even as adults, like I said, this manifests in different areas of our lives. It could be in our families. It could be in our churches. It could be in our social circles with our friends. It could also be within the workplace. It could be within the churches. All walks of life, as adults, we tend to experience this pressure. And the question is, what is it that we're going to do about it? But for it to make sense to all of us, I would just like to share a few examples. And these are not new things. These are things that I believe you have also come across that you are experiencing. But until we develop the muscle to deal with these challenges, we'll constantly find ourselves in a situation where we are going to succumb to pressure. And we need to also understand, how does this pressure come about? I always say that when adults want to control you, when they want you to do the things that they want you to do, that you also don't want to do, they cause guilt or shame by the things they say, or by excluding you from certain things. And if you fall into that trap, then you find yourself doing things that you know you didn't want to do, but because you don't want to miss out, but because you want to feel part of the mainstream, you want to feel part of the noise, wherever the noise is to be there, then you constantly going to subject yourself to peer pressure. And let's go into these examples and talk about them. And I warn you, you might find yourself in one of those examples. I'm not perfect. I found myself in one of those, but I decided at some point to say, I am going to draw the line, and we'll get into those aspects of drawing the line later. I have seen adults where maybe as friends, it might be from a work perspective, where you and your friends decide that maybe on a Thursday after work, you're going to go out, have dinner, or have drinks. Or maybe during your Saturday, you can put a Saturday and one Saturday out with your friends, and then you decide that we're going to go to this place for you to enjoy as friends. But you sometimes find that odd friend who at that point experiences financial difficulties, and usually then these people put themselves in a situation where they go for these events even when they know they do not have money. They don't even say it, but they put themselves under so much pressure, and they start taking money from other areas in their lives, and then repurpose it now for this dinner or drinks with friends, because they don't want to feel out. They want to put this face that says, I am able to afford, and as a result, I'm part of these friends of mine, and we can do things together. But when they go back home, they know the challenge that they have, so they compromise themselves in that way, and succumb to pressure. And probably this is not new, like I said, something that something that either has affected you, or it continues to affect somebody that you know. Let us just make the second example. The second example that I would like to make is, actually this happened. I had a conversation some time back with a friend who wanted to change his address. And when I mean by changing the address, to move from where they are staying to go to stay in another place. But as we were unpeeling this onion, I came to realize that the reason why he wanted to move the address was because some of the friends have already moved into the golf estates. But the reality is, and here I'm talking about somebody that I know, the reality is they were not in the position financially to move into those spaces. But most importantly, even the houses that they occupied at that time, there was nothing wrong with those houses. There was nothing wrong with the neighborhood, but it was just a question of compromising themselves and succumbing to this peer pressure. And in this instance, this pressure was not exerted from the external side to them. No, it was them putting more pressure on themselves to be able to fit in with the Joneses. Long story short, he ultimately moved out, but it didn't take long before other areas of his life started to suffer financially, because moving into the estate brought a lot of unplanned expenditures that he was not ready for. And it took a long time for him to recover. Luckily, he ended up recovering. It took a long time for him to recover, to come to a point where he could be able to sustain the life in that place. But it took a couple of years, 2 to 3 years, for him to get there. And remember, as he's trying to recover, there are a lot of things that were compromised in the process. And he put his family through these challenges as a result of just wanting to be part of the Joneses. And he failed a simple test of run your race. He failed a simple test that says keep to your own lane. And most of us, we fall into that trap. Let me give the second last example. And this happened in social settings, especially with men, especially when it comes to things like alcohol. When people start to compete about, they drink cognac, they drink this whiskey, which is 12 years old, or it is 18 years old. I don't know the damn why the years are important, but I have seen people getting into the space of buying alcohol or drinking alcohol, even if they do not have money, just for them to fit within the social circle. And as I'm reflecting on this, all of these things are things that we can control, but people put themselves in those spaces where they just spend money that they do not have. And it's not only about money. When you talk about, for example, this example of alcohol, it's compromising your own health, knowing that you don't want to drink but you want to feed with others. And by the way, let me pause there. I'm going to do a video in the coming months about my journey as well with alcohol, because that is one of the Achilles heels that I had, and yeah, let me not talk about it now. I'll speak to it. But the fact that you compromise yourself, you want to drink because somebody says, ask you a question, why aren't you drinking today? And you feel the pressure to do it. Those are some of the things that people do that gets them in trouble, doing things that violates their own value system. I'll just give you a simple last example. There are many, but let me just give you an example, and you have your own examples as well. And the pressure that comes from the family, it's one of those that are even more unbearable. You know, I remember myself, I decided to follow a certain church at some point, and luckily my mother did not have a problem with me moving from the church I grew up in. And I remember one of my elder siblings saying to me, I hope that it's only for now. Later in life, our family church will come back home. And it might seem innocent, but it was an indirect way of saying you don't veer away from the church that we grew in. We are of this denomination, and you have to be in this denomination. But unfortunately, they were talking to me. I've always been grounded, and I stood my ground, you know. But the thing is, it can put pressure on you if you are not you're not grounded. And in families, you get this pressure about who to marry, when to marry, how to marry. You know, even when you arrange your own wedding celebration, there will be other people who come and there's a difference between those who give advice, who give inputs in terms of how things are, but there's also a difference about people who put pressure in such a way that you start asking yourself, is it my wedding or is it theirs? Because now they put pressure because they are concerned about other people in the surroundings. They want things to be done in such a way that other people within the surroundings can feel that, yeah, no, this family has arrived. You know, those are the type of pressures that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about people who, with good intentions, that are trying to assist. I've seen it also with families, with funerals, where people would put pressure on the bereaved spouse, you know, the spouse of the bereaved, and say, this person could have wanted this type of coffin. You have to buy this coffin. You have to bring this type of limousines to take the deceased to the funeral. No, it's all about putting pressure on this person because people have got a standard that they have said that they want you to abide with, which is not your standard. I hope you get the gist. There are many examples that I can give, but I just wanted to be as practical as possible to talk to the daily things that we as a people experience, and not talk academic about these things. But these are the things that daily you experience. And I even say we go to an extent that as parents, as adults, we even compete with our using our children. You know, we've got a way to rationalize so that we can fit with the Joneses. You know, I won't go into it, but in depth. But for example, metric dancers. You know, what are the things that we need to do to show that my child is the it? And then we fall into these traps, and all these traps put more pressure on us as adults, and we start to lose the direction that we should have as adult people with personal power to make the right choices. So having unpacked those examples, the question is, how do you move forward? How do you handle pressure as an adult? And I think it starts with knowing what you stand for. My take is that if you know what you stand for, it becomes easier for you to identify and know what is it that you don't stand for. It's simply like having a to-do list, but also having a not to-do list. And this is something that is tied to your value system. If your value system is solid, you will know what are those things that are going to violate your value system, what are the things that are going to build it, and what are the things that are going to block the growth of your value system. And it does not really take a rocket science. You know, as an adult, what is it that feels good about certain decisions? You having to change your car for the sake of changing a car, is it something that feels good? What does your body say to you, at that point? So you need to know what is it that you stand for, and you need to have a strong inner system that is not blown by the wind at any point in time, but know what you stand for. Because once you know what you stand for, I'm telling you, decisions become easier. Which leads us to the next point of how to handle pressure, which is learning to say no. I always get concerned, I mean, not concerned as such, but surprised why it's difficult for some people to say no. But anyway, we are different and we learn at different times in our life journey. I'll give you an example where I use no to set my boundaries and not to absorb pressure exerted on me as an adult. Usually when I go to my hometown in the Free State, or even anywhere, but specifically there in my hometown, you would have people that when you walk around, they ask you money, from left to right to the center. They always ask you money. And what I used to do, I would always say to them, no, I don't have money, and then once I open that space explaining that I don't have money, now they come up with a reason why you can get this money, why you should give them money. And I came to a point now when people ask me money in those settings, I just say no. I don't succumb to pressure where somebody just puts pressure on me as an adult to give them money just because if I give them money, then I will form part of their circle or I will win their favor in one way or the other. No, I just say no. I don't open that debate in terms of money. It's like in social settings, like I said earlier, there are people who do things with good intentions, but there will also be people who say, no, don't go home at this stage. It's not far. You will always get there. Forgetting that you're going to drive, let's say, a number of kilometers down to your place. I have easily learned to say no, take my car keys and leave those social settings to be able to go to my own home, where there is sanity and tranquility and serenity. So we have to learn to say no, because no helps us to set the boundaries. If you don't set those boundaries, people will always put pressure on you to do things that they want you to do, because probably your presence at that point in time benefits them. That's why sometimes they say no, and those happens mainly in social in social settings. But then when it comes to family, there is also a way to say no, and you'll have to find that way, and that way is saying no in the most polite way, because this is your family. These are people that you will continue to want and need in this journey of life. But I have learned to not to take pressure about having to help every one in the family. I'm talking about the extended family. We can talk about black text. Some people say there's no black text, but if you have felt the pressure of the needs being put on your shoulder, whether you call it black text or what, you will understand what I'm saying. I've learned to say no and not to take pressure that is put on me to take responsibility for everyone in the family. I'm not Rescue 911. I'm not prepared to sign up for being a Rescue 911 at any time. I have learned to say no, because if you don't learn to say no, the pressure that will be put on you as an adult will be so immense to a point that you cannot even take care of yourself. The last point that I would like you to consider as you navigate the space of adult pressure is the type of friends, the type of circle that you have around you. That is one of the most important things that you need for you to be able to deal with peer pressure as an adult. You need friends next to you who firstly share your life perspective, who share the same outlook to life, because those types of people, they will never put unnecessary pressure on you. In fact, they will exert more positive peer pressure on you. Remember the beginning of this talk, I have said that I'm focusing on bad pressure. But here, that's where we turn things a little bit to say, you need a circle of friends that are going to exert positive peer pressure on you. People who are able to look you in the eyes and say, hey, this direction that you are taking with your life now is not serving you. It's not even serving your loved ones. Stop what you are doing. There are people who will say, you are not saving, you are not investing your money. Then we are going to force you to save your money. That is the type of peer pressure that you need. But if you've got friends that are always pulling you into that dark hole, then you need to start to think about the type of friends and circle that you have around you. There's a saying that says, show me your friends and I will tell you where your future will end. Tell me just who your friend is and I'll tell you what the next steps of your life are going to be. So that is so central in how you deal with adult pressure. You need people next to you who will advise you, who will recommend you, who will also castigate you for taking wrong decisions about your life. Not people that are going to be your praise singers, not people that are just looking up to you to fit with you, people who are afraid to offend you because maybe you have money and then you always help them in those things and they are afraid to upset the apple cart. Those are not the type of friends that you need. They are just, if you don't have friends that are going to support you, you'll find yourself in that circle where you are going to suffer. So, adult pressure is a reality. I might not have unpacked all the examples, but you have the examples. And let me tell you, adult pressure is not going to end so long as you exist. But what needs to always be there and be strengthened are those three areas. Know what you stand for, your ability to say no, and the type of friends or the circle that you keep. Once you have all those three things, then you realize that you will not succumb to external pressure that now puts pressure on you internally to do things that you don't want to do things that are going to violate your value system. I'm your friend Butaki Hlalele, your friend in knowledge and empowerment. I always try to come up with Life 101 conversations for a great life because I've got only one aim: to make you better, to make myself better, so that we can make the neighbor better, and as a result, the entire community becomes better. So if it is for the first time that you have come to this channel, or you have before come to this channel but you did not subscribe, may I humbly request that you subscribe and click here so that we can continue to grow this community of dreamers and help to make dreams possible for each one of us. Until we meet in the next episode, I hope this lesson was one of the valuable lessons that you will take forward for yourself and for your loved ones.